Can't sleep? Well, you're not alone. I'm Henrik, and my podcast, Fall Asleep with Henrik, has been helping hundreds of thousands of people drift off since 2018. No gimmicks, just genuine, humorous, warm storytelling to help you unwind. You can listen to Fall Asleep with Henrik everywhere you listen to podcasts.
Hello and welcome to mini episode 361 of Real Life Ghost Stories. And I have two spooky stories for you today, and the last story comes from the 30th of April 2024. And story number 1 comes from Indigo. I love my grandpa so much. We call him Papa. Everyone loves him. He was such a special man for so many reasons that there are too many to list here. But his heart was enormous, and he was loved dearly by all who knew him. On April the 29th, 2015, we lost him to his last severe stroke. After battling strokes, blood pressure and clogged arteries and taking countless medications for years. To say we were devastated is an understatement. I felt especially hit hard by this. I had called my grandparents and forfeited what would unknowingly be my last opportunity to see him alive only days before he died, due to exhaustion from a 12 to 13 hour long solo road trip. If only I'd known. The 29th comes and we lose the most important man in our whole family. Everyone has flown into town for his celebration of life, including his only daughter, my aunt, who lives in Miami. A day or two after Papa had passed, my aunt was on my grandparents' computer, trying to make head or tail of the medical bills and what needed to be paid. The usual types of things that need sorting out after someone dies. My papa's medication cost them so much money over the years. They had to sell precious family antiques and jewellery to keep up, and that was with the help of their children too. So my aunt was sitting at the desk trying to make sense of the mess of his bills, when his voice came to her just as clear as if he was standing in the same room. He told my aunt, "Don't you give those bastards another goddamn dime." My aunt started laughing and then crying. Not knowing what was happening, being in a different room, my grandma and I asked if she was okay. She explained what happened. We couldn't help but laugh. It was such a Papa thing to say. He was still around. The night he passed, my sister had a visitation dream from him. He told her he was much better now, that our Nana would be okay. He did not want anyone to feel bad about what happened, and that whenever we saw a blue butterfly to know it was him popping in to say hi and check on us. Since then, the blue butterfly has been a symbol of our Papa. I was happy that my sister had gotten a special message from him, but envious that it hadn't been me. That was until I had my own visitation dreams. The visitation dreams, they feel different. It is hard to describe, but they have a unique feeling that is unlike a typical dream. And there is also an awareness in them that you do not have in a typical dream. It was exceptionally vivid, not unusual for me. I was standing in a big gymnasium from elementary school. The gym is full of people visiting loved ones, and I need to get to the open door on the other side where I think my family is. My eyes are scanning the crowd. Then I see a man, in an old man hat, plaid shirt and brown slacks, a Papa Smurf beard and glasses. And he waves with a big smile on his face. I almost wave back, but then I think to myself, oh, that man must be waving at someone behind me. That can't be Papa. Papa died. So, feeling silly to have begun waving at a stranger, I ignored the man and kept walking towards the open door. I had to walk past him to get to the open door, however, and just as I was saying my, "Pardon me, excuse me," the man grabbed my arm from behind and said in the most wonderful, jovial, loving way, "Is that any way to greet your Papa?" And he pulled me into the biggest, strongest, safest bear hug, just like he would when he was still alive. I could not believe my eyes. I exclaimed, "Papa, I didn't think it was you. I didn't think I would ever get to see you again." He said, "Of course it's me. I'm okay, and your Nana is going to be okay. She still has things to do there." I know he said other things too, but those bits are a little more cloudy. "I love you, I am with you," things like that. When I woke up, I knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that I'd gotten to see my Papa again, and that I got another amazing hug from him, and I sobbed like a baby. I got to see him in a couple of visitation dreams after that over the years as well. One where he came to my home where I lived in Germany with my family. He was talking at the dinner table with my mom and dad, but they are more and more scarce as I cannot seem to manage to see him without crying. I think that makes him sad. I don't mean to, I just get so full of emotion when I get to see him in a visitation dream that crying just happens. I have normal dreams too where I am blissfully unaware that he has passed away and we are all together. We all get our little blue butterfly visits from time to time. That is so special to all of us. I have sat in his easy chair and felt a big warm hug when I've been feeling particularly down, like he was hugging me from behind. And so often you can feel his presence in the house he and my Nana built. Now, something unique to myself, a little backstory. Papa loved B.B. King, the king of the blues. And thanks to him and one amazing summer with our grandparents and our uncles back in 1992, my sisters and I all love B.B. King too. But of all of B.B. King's songs, Papa's very favourite is Sweet Little Angel. There are so many of his songs that I like that I have on my Spotify playlist, with so many other artists and so many other songs and genres. This is important information, I promise. Aside from an occasional blue butterfly, which always makes me smile, I had not seen or heard from Papa in a while. Probably because I cry every time he visits. Sorry, Papa. But it was a bummer. And I would think, oh, I hope Papa can see me now and know that I'm doing well, that I'm happy. My husband and I bought our first house 1.5 years ago and started renovations, starting with the master bedroom. We'd gotten to the point where I was able to help do the things in the room, prime and paint and such. So I gave my husband the night off and I got the paint workspace ready and my little speaker and fired up my Spotify. I was officially in the zone. After all the ads were finished and I'd gotten 30 minutes of uninterrupted music, my curated playlist started. Papa popped into my head, and then the song Sweet Little Angel started to play. I started laughing and crying again, and I shouted to my husband, he's here, oh my God, Papa is here, he's saying hi." And I ran out to the living room with my little speaker so I could hear the song and hug my husband tight. He knows how much it means to me. He just held me and let me happily cry it out. I finally got another Papa visit after a long dry spell. Fast forward to just last month, March, we decided to renovate my in-laws' vacation bedroom for their visit in June. We were excited and happy. It is my turn again with the painting and I think, I wonder if it'll happen again. What are the chances? I kind of put it out of my mind. I have so many songs I can listen to on my playlist for a couple of hours and not repeat a song, nor come across a single B.B. King song. The chances of hearing B.B. King, let alone Sweet Little Angel, are very slim. A couple of other songs played, but then it happened. His song came on, and I knew that he was with me in that moment once again. I listen to my playlist all the time, and that song never comes on. But now, while doing my first nights of painting in both my rooms, I got a little nudge, a little hi there. Me Becker Boo from my Papa. Anyone can believe what they want, that this is coincidence, but I know in my heart and my mind that it is simply not so. My Papa visits and he will play his song or come in a dream or as a blue butterfly messenger. When my husband and I got married, we married at my grandparents' property. Papa's energy was all around. My arch had a blue butterfly garland, and as traditionally so, my something blue, and all my girls wore something blue, had small blue butterfly brooches so that Papa could be with us too. Oh, this is all so beautiful. Except for healthcare systems where you have to pay loads of money for basic healthcare and medication. That's less beautiful. And I can totally understand that feeling of envy, that feeling of like, oh, your sister got to have this visitation dream and you didn't, I would feel really envious too. Admittedly, I'd be like, why not me? But then I'm so glad for you that you got to have that visitation dream. And I totally get it. You're right. I mean, people say all the time that visitation dreams just feel different. And I love these stories where loved ones are able to send you a sign via musical choices. You know, I think it's such a beautiful thing to be bopping along, listening to a song, and then all of a sudden you're hit with a beautiful, nostalgic, meaningful song that is really pertinent to that person. I think it's lovely. And I'm really glad too that you were able to find a way to include your papa in your wedding in the form of having a little blue butterfly motif. That is beautiful. What a gorgeous story.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Can't sleep? Well, you're not alone. I'm Henrik, and my podcast, Fall Asleep with Henrik, has been helping hundreds of thousands of people drift off since 2018. No gimmicks, just genuine, humorous, warm storytelling to help you unwind. You can listen to Fall Asleep with Henrik everywhere you listen to podcasts.
And story number 2 comes from Gavin. I've been threatening or promising on social media to send you a long listener story of all my weird experiences, but I'm still working on making it more than a bullet point list of short sentences, so this is not it. What I can send you and want to send you is an experience my dad had when he was younger. My dad is a skeptic, strong and true. He is a very sensible person, hard to shake and even harder to scare. But, aside from dealing with his diagnosis, I've seen him scared and upset twice in my life. The first was telling me about the only ghost story he has ever believed in, the one he lived himself. He won't even watch a TV show or a movie that is not firmly set in the real world, denouncing it as rubbish or too far-fetched for him. So the fact that he believes in this adds to its credibility. I did ask him if he remembers this, hoping to put some of it in his own words, but he is currently going through the middle stages of Alzheimer's, and he seems to have forgotten most of it. So I will do my best to recall what he told me when he was still well. Before I was born, the youngest of 4, my dad went through a period of unemployment. He is a proud man and refused to sign on to any sort of benefits, so he spent his days looking for any and all work he could do to tide him over until he found a more steady income. He had gone through school to become an accountant, and luckily, a local shoe factory needed someone to do the books. It would not be full-time work, but it was the 70s and any accountancy work was going to pay just enough to get by. His new job would mean that he would head into the factory late in the day, just in time for the workers to head home for the night. He would then do the books while the boss would keep him company, watching over him to make sure he was trustworthy. After a month or 2, the owner decided my dad was competent enough to have a set of keys and work alone from then on. He was tasked with closing everything up after finishing the accounts of an evening and shutting off the lights on his way out. My dad was thrilled. The extra responsibility he felt meant that he may end up with more permanent and maybe full-time work. He went in on his first night alone with a spring in his step. His walk to and from work passed through a large cemetery, fairly modern for the time and open without much shrubbery or plant life to make it feel unsafe, despite the creepy atmosphere. But as I said, my dad is a skeptic. He said he used to like the quiet and rarely saw anyone, so it was extra strange that evening to see a small, frail-looking old woman sitting on the bench looking out into the graves. He nodded and smiled and went on his way, and she smiled and nodded back. He soon arrived at work. He explained that the factory was exactly like you would imagine. One big rectangular building with all the offices built into the back of the single main room, looking out over the work area. That was where he would go to do the books. He locked the front door behind him and went in and did the job. He said there was nothing strange about his experience up to this point, and as he finished the books, he left them on the owner's desk, and he was in a good mood, satisfied at a job well done. As he left, he had also been instructed that he had to shut off the lights before leaving. Each row of lights were isolated on their own circuits. Large metal light shades cast spotlights down into the workspace, with a heavy industrial switch for each row set into the steel pillars running down the centre walkway of the factory. He had to turn each one off as he passed, leaving only the light in front of him to see by. And by this time it was dark outside, with the windows small and high up so visibility was low. As he got to, by his estimate, about halfway down the aisle, pitch darkness behind him, he heard a bang coming from the office he had just left. The sound of the door that he had just locked slamming shut. He walked back and checked, turning the lights back on as he went, but found the door still locked and nothing out of place. Assuming it was something to do with the electrics being shut off, maybe a particularly old fuse or something, he went back towards the way out, turning the lights off as he went. Again, halfway, a loud bang. This just solidified in his mind that it must be something to do with how the lighting system worked, so shrugging it off, he kept going. When he got to the front doors of the factory, he fished in his pocket 4 keys, standing in the remaining pool of light. He suddenly heard a shout coming from the office area again, followed by the sound of heavily stamping running feet. Telling it, this is when he became visibly scared. I've only seen him that scared one other time, which I will get to, but it was the pale skin and cold sweat sort of fear that a person can't really fake. He explained that he unlocked the door and slammed it shut behind him before locking it back up and leaving, still hearing bangs and screams from within. Shaken but relieved to be out of there, he began his walk back home, his walk through the cemetery. As he walked briskly, given the environment, he was stopped in his tracks to see the old woman from earlier still sitting on the bench. He stopped. "Is everything okay, madam?" he asked her. "I'm fine, darling, just enjoying the peace and quiet, my love," he recalls her saying. He offered to wait with her or walk her home. Given the time, it was the chivalrous thing to do, and my dad has ever been the gentleman, but she declined. "I'll be okay a while longer, I'm just waiting for someone," she insisted. My dad walked on. By his recollection, he walked less than 10 steps before he decided he had to wait and make sure that she was okay. The cemetery felt safe, but it was still very dark and very empty, apart from the occasional street light, like the one she was sitting under. But when he turned around, she had silently vanished. He ran the rest of the way home and took our large German Shepherd into work with him for the remaining weeks he worked there. Luckily, he found a well-paid and full-time job somewhere else not long after. The only other time I've seen him so shaken was after a dream he had. In this dream, he said he started in bed, but my mother was not there and it was daytime. He got up and went out into the hall and heard a noise coming from our spare room. He described going in as if it was a door to another place, and the room itself, although the right size and shape, was decorated differently. All blue sky themed with clouds and balloons, and a small blonde boy sitting in the middle of the room playing with a toy train. The boy had glasses and was wearing the shorts and shirt of an old-fashioned school uniform. As he looked up, the child appeared freshly burned and horribly scarred all down one side, but didn't seem to be in pain. "Hello, do you know where my mum and dad are?" he said. "No, I'm sorry, this isn't your house. Can I help you?" my dad answered. "But I live here, and I've lost my parents somewhere." the boy said before starting to cry. My dad explained how he sat down and took the child in his arms and held him while reassuring him that he would find his parents for him and he would be okay. The burns sticking to and staining his own clothes. My dad woke up crying that morning and cried every time he told the story since. The weird thing is, my dad was blonde as a child and wore glasses. His parents didn't have much money, so he often had to wear his school uniform all day and at weekends. Both of his parents had long passed at this point. I never met them, and they had passed before I was born. 2 years after having this dream, he had a stroke that he never really recovered from. During what little recovery he made, he kept asking where his parents were, and even after recovery, the stroke left him weak down one side. I've always wondered if it was some sort of premonition or warning that he had received, either from some supernatural source or because his body had somehow told him about the weak spot in his brain. Anyway, I'll get back to working on my own ever-lengthening list of spooky encounters soon. I hope this little tale was as interesting as it was short. Gavin, it absolutely was as interesting as it was short. I love when stories centre around skeptics. I don't know, it just brings a little je ne sais quoi for me, you know? But I'm curious about this story, right? Because it sort of sounds like your dad had two entirely different paranormal experiences on the one night. Like, what are the chances? I wonder what night it was specifically. Because obviously if he's more skeptical, not remotely interested in anything along that line, would like turn off TV or film if it mentioned ghosts or the paranormal. What night was it? Because was it a night, I wonder, where, you know, the veil was thinner? But besides that, first of all, the slamming door I can get on board with, you know where your dad sort of suspected that the slamming sound had something to do with the lighting system. Yeah, totally get that. Totally understand that. I would probably rationalise it the same way, you know. I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what it was. But the shouting and the sound of running feet, shut up. I would not be waiting to see if that was human or not. I'd be out that door locking them in. I don't care. I think the sound of feet running towards you is far scarier than anything else. It's far scarier than shouting. It's far scarier than doors slamming. Oh, it really, really scares me. I would love to have known whether or not your dad spoke to the other members of staff about this afterwards. I imagine not, because I'd be thinking I need to hold on to this job for dear life and I don't want to say anything that may jeopardise my chances of holding on to this job. I wonder what like the history of that factory was, whether it was always a factory, and if it had always been a factory, was it a factory since like, you know, way older times when people in factories maybe didn't have good working conditions and good working rights? Was it something else? Did other people experience these things? So many questions. And as for the woman in the graveyard, like presumably she was completely separate to the whole incident. Because if I was your dad, I'd be thinking, fucking hell, who has two separate ghost experiences on the same night? That is so strange. And that second part of the story where your dad had a dream about a little boy burnt on one side, oh, that's really given me the heebie-jeebies as well, because I wonder if, as you said at the end, whether it was like his brain knowing something wasn't right. I mean, if it was that or if it was premonitory, it's still absolutely terrifying. And I'm presuming the implication is that the burn on the child is representative of the damage done by the stroke that your dad had later. Oh, that's really rattled me. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you to Indigo and Gavin for sending in your stories. Remember, the last story came from 30th of April 2024. And if you would like to send in your story, you can do so by emailing it to reallifeghoststoriespodcast@gmail.com. You can also check out the website reallifeghoststoriespodcast.com. And if you are desperate for some extra content, you can subscribe to the Patreon. That is patreon.com/reallifeghoststories, where for $5 a month or $2 a month, you get access to heaps of extra content, as well as every single main and mini episode completely ad-free. And on that note, I shall see you next time.
Why don't more infant formula companies use organic, grass-fed whole milk instead of skim? Why don't more infant formula companies use the latest breast milk science? Why don't more infant formula companies run their own clinical trials? Why don't more infant formula companies use more of the proteins found in breast milk? Why don't more infant formula companies have their own factories instead of outsourcing their manufacturing? We wondered the same thing. So we made ByHeart, a better formula for formula. Learn more at byheart.com.